I guess the question I have is since you are with the Bipartisan Policy Center and I'm a conservative, I'm someone who would have not voted to remove the speaker. But one thing that I think I found upsetting from a bipartisan standpoint was that the reason, ostensibly, why McCarthy was removed because he had worked with Democrats in a bipartisan way to get the stopgap spending. And then you have those same Democrats turning around and voting to depose him for doing a bipartisan thing. So what does this mean for bipartisanship? Is bipartisanship dead? I mean, to me, it seemed like these Democrats didn't really care about actually governing. They wanted political vengeance, even though he was actually working with them across the aisle.
Listen, Carrie, I am with you on this. I don't understand. Again, yes, at the Bipartisan Policy Center and coming from the Bipartisan Policy, no surprise here. I was pleased and happy that we avoided the shutdown last Sunday night by working out this deal between the House and Senate on a continuing resolution. It did not include the Ukraine money, which I know is an issue here, and that's something that have to be addressed somehow, probably over the next few weeks. But you're right. He did something which was bipartisan. Now, it was definitely bipartisan in the Senate, and yes, there were a number of Democrats that helped him pass that bill to make it bipartisan. So bipartisanship is not it's not beanball. It's tough, and it came back to haunt him. But I'm surprised. I was surprised. I truly was surprised. I expected that a few Democrats, safe Democratic seats, would have come across and offset the 8 votes that he lost from the Republican conservative group, because now they're going to be faced with, quite frankly, they're going to probably be faced with an even tougher situation. And whether it's Jim Jordan or whether it's Mr. Schlieff, I don't know. But this does not bode well for bipartisanship going forward now.
Well, let me just add one thing, that yes, it's true that he did work with them in a bipartisan manner in terms of getting their votes. But if you talk to even, I think, some of the more sane Democrats, they'll tell you he did nothing on the PR front or nothing on the Sunday talk show circuit to reach out at all. In fact, he kind of hung them out to dry. Plus, there's never been, in my mind, a single instance where people have voted to save a speaker, because I think it's always, if your opponent's digging a hole, well, don't take away their shovel. Now, so I can understand, even though I think strategically, I agree with you, it would have been better for the Dems to try to get some kind of concession, kind of get some kind of deal, because he'd already, McCarthy, breached the point of no return. So either he'd violated the deal, so either they were going to get rid of him or they weren't. So he didn't have anything else to lose if he did it. But what worries me, folks, and I want to get your take on this, I certainly don't think that maybe Steve Scalise, but definitely not Jim Jordan, can get the 218 votes. And I'm worried that there's not anyone in the chamber, frankly, who can get 218 votes. And the House cannot function without a speaker. So what's going to happen there?
Well, first of all, I agree that I think he could have saved his speakership if he had continued his bipartisanship that evening and walked across the aisle. And I believe he thought he could have done that. But yes, you're right. He made some decisions, such as the impeachment proceedings on the president, which probably didn't help with a number of Democrats on the other side. And so he could have, I think, saved his neck, if you like, but he did not, at that last moment, he did not choose to work with the Democrats and make some deals. So he lost it. He lost it because he was bipartisan, and then he didn't carry through. And he got the vote because he was bipartisan, but then he didn't follow through by working all the way in. What will happen? All I know is, Dave, I'm not up there right now. All I can say is, and Carrie, when the Republican caucus meets on Tuesday, if I understand the procedure, they are not going to come out onto this House floor and vote until they know somebody has 218 votes. Now, given how narrow that caucus is in terms of votes compared to the Democrats, I'm worried that you may have some agreement you think in the caucus, and then you walk out on the floor and you still lose it. So at least they're going to try not to make a spectacle out of it like it happened with the 15 votes earlier this year with Mr. McCarthy.
And I just think that. Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, I was just going to say, Dave, to your question, just a process question for Bill. We have an interim speaker, that's Patrick McHenry, right? Is he able to basically do the exact same functions that a speaker does? Is there anything that an interim speaker cannot do?
I'm an old Senate staffer. I'm not a House staffer. Interim. We haven't really had an interim speaker, so I think it's kind of a cutting it out of whole cloth here. What he can do, he can't do. He certainly did vacate Mrs. Pelosi and Mr. Van Hollen's offices right after he took over, so he has some powers, but he can operate for a while, but you really have to have an elected speaker. So I don't know how much say he has in setting the agenda on the floor, the bills that come to the floor, and things of that nature. And remember, this is going to be interesting because Mr. Scalise has been the one that's been running the floor. That's his job, and I don't know how he's going to feel if that he runs for speaker and he loses. How he's going to feel about working with Mr. Jordan. There's going to be real division here still within the Republic, and I can't tell you how palpable for some members a lot of members up there are very angry and upset about what happened, and that's in some ways that's why they went home, because there was going to be all out fisticuffs up there if we hadn't after that decision that was made on Tuesday.
Well, you have 96% of the caucus voting for him, and they were going to be these 8 members. And again, this was something that was going to happen. But if you have a situation where a single person can bring in a motion to vacate, eventually this was going to happen. I think it started it started with the debt ceiling. That was the beginning of the end, and then it just got worse and worse. And so, as I said, I'm just hoping for the business of the country that they can find a speaker. But it's as Mike Murphy said right now. I think most people would rather work on the Beirut bomb squad. This is not a job that very many people want, and it's going to make it a lot tougher to get anything done. And then you've got the pit of snakes waking once you get there. And I almost felt sorry for Kevin McCarthy, because the way that Matt Gaetz talked to him, I just can't imagine AOC or Ilhan Omar, whoever you want to say on the left, talking to Nancy Pelosi like that. It would just never happen.
I'm reminded of, and I too was felt a little bad for the speaker, former speaker, Mr. McCarthy. I'm always reminded of that. I think it was that long-serving speaker, Sam Rayburn, who used to say, it takes a jackass to kick down a barn. It takes a carpenter to build it. I don't think Mr. Gaetz had a plan other than a vendetta to get rid of Mr. McCarthy, and that's the sad part about it, because we should set aside those personal differences and think about the country first and foremost, as opposed to our own personal desires. But there's a lot of anger still in that Republican caucus, and I just don't know how it's going to play out next week.